Okay.
Other things we got coming up.
Okay.
What exactly tomfoolery is.
Okay.
You know,
Very
a lot of
good.
people know, oh, I've heard of tomfoolery, but I really don't know what it is. So.
See, but you know, is that on or not?
It's on.
Okay.
Hold on, let me.
No. Yes.
Everything's doing well.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome to Wildrose Brewery. We're here with our guest, of course, Kelly, my co-host, and myself, Bill Moran. And we have Matt Reardon here of MCR Partners, and we're going to be talking to him in just a bit. And then we have Tom and Michele from Tomfoolery Fun Club. And so we're going to start here. First of all, this is our first inaugural show from here. And wouldn't you know, the day we decide to do this, I get a bad chest cold, and it is what it is. So,
It's his birthday, but it's my present that he can't talk a lot.
Yeah. Let me turn this microphone. And, you know, this is totally unscripted here, so let me see here. I think we can say something, Kelly.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? I'm the Verizon guy.
Yeah, I think we're okay.
All right.
All right. So we've got our guest here today, and really we're just going to go through and talk to them and find out a little bit about them and what they're doing now.
There's a lot of feedback from the phone, though. Your phone's talking to me. Can you turn
Oh, it
the sound
is.
down a little bit?
There you go.
That's what happens.
This is all live. This
I
is
know.
not
This is live. That's how you know.
That's what happens.
It's live.
TV.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, we don't have the elaborate studios no, but we're going to do our best. So we're going to start introduce Matt Reardon. Matt, welcome to our show. First time you've been on our show. Welcome.
Yeah, first time, but we kind of, we're back and forth a little bit on Facebook, and I follow you guys and I read and see what you're doing. And I always find it intriguing when people are paying attention to what the heck's going on. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of people, and the ones that are paying attention are usually upset about something that's happening, but not willing to do anything about it to fix it.
Right. So, yeah, we don't do anything about that on our show. You know that
Okay.
we
Well, that's
leave
good.
for.
Well, then let me.
Yeah, I've
all
got-
right, thanks. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, we're hard pressed just to figure out how to set up the equipment and get these mics, you guys in front of the mics. Outside of all that stuff about all the politics,
Oh yeah.
this show we're all about the beer and spending time with people.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Happy birthday, by the way.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Yes, it's his birthday.
Thank
today.
you.
Well, that's right. It is his birthday. I wished you a happy birthday on Facebook, didn't I?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, good.
Both you and Michele did. Matt and Kelly did in person. So Matt, let's start out with you. Actually, you came from Crown. You grew up in Crown Point.
Grew up in Crown Point. I'm number 10 of 11 kids. There's
10?
6 boys, 5 girls. There's 6 lefties, 5 righties.
Wow.
Wow.
And I have over 50 some nieces and nephews of just my.
Holidays at your house must be fun.
We still do Christmas at one of my sister's house, and we still do 4th of July at the corner in Crown Point. Anybody who's from Crown Point knows it's like our corner. On our side, it's
guys have a whole street.
And Main, right on the corner there. Then like on the other side is the Little Mirrors, who also had 11 kids in their family and also went to Andrean. So they're like on the other side. So it's been that way for as long as I can remember.
Wow. And so what class, Andrean, did you graduate?
I graduated in the class of 1985.
Okay. Not too far behind me. I went to Andrean for 1 year, then went to Maryville. Father Menor and I didn't get along.
Well, I don't think you were the only one, because I recall as a youngster hearing that guy's name. I think more so my brothers Mike and Pat referencing him, who were a little bit older than you as well.
Yeah, Father Menor, he was a bulldog. That's all I'll say. And I'm telling you, there was something that he said. He believed in very, very strict discipline. You heard the booms and the bangs, and yeah, that was Father Menor. And then Father Ward and all those guys that teach
Ward
math
also.
class. Yeah,
They teach you a lesson.
yeah, both
One
those.
way or the other.
Yeah. So no, actually, my dad retired, so I had to go over to Maryville. Either that or Father Menor was going to kill me.
Yeah.
One or the other.
I said I don't think you were the only one. That would be my guess. So yeah, I grew up in Crown Point, and from there went to Andrean, and then I played a lot of sports, and so football, basketball, track, and the nice part about going to St. Mary's and Crown Point is they still had CYO sports, so you could still run track and play basketball and play football, and I had a chance to do all that stuff. And then I ended up earning some money and making my way to Loras College. When we started talking, I said I was 10 of 11. Well, we were independently wealthy and we had so much money laying around that it was easy for us to go to college. No, I don't know about you guys, but I still don't know how my parents afforded what they did and how we did it, because we were fortunate enough to go to St. Mary's and Crown Point and Andrean and then on from there. But yeah, so anyway, it was great. I certainly enjoyed Andrean and Loras College, the Harvard of the Midwest.
Yeah, so Loras, you studied political science.
I did, yes.
Get ready for Lake County politics.
Oh, yeah. Well, the student population at Loras was a mixture of people from Iowa and a lot of Chicago Catholic League people. And I met a lot of guys playing football that went to all those boys' schools, and met a lot of nice young ladies that went to the girls' schools. So there was a mixture of. So they had a sense of what was going on in politics. But yeah, one of my friends at Loras is now a congressman, and so we had a couple of really cool teachers there. One was an old salty Democrat, and the other one was an old salty Republican. So you heard both ends of the spectrum, and those two guys, they fully respected each other, and they couldn't have the more differing of opinions. And so you'd have to take them, there wasn't a lot. Loras is not a big school, about 3,500, but you certainly heard from, these people have been around this for a long time. So it was, I found political science interesting.
So it got you ready, like I said, for Lake County politics.
Sure. Well,
except the FBI wasn't involved at that point.
Well, no, I think so. A little bit. Let me back up a little bit. My dad was a Lake County judge or a magistrate and a prosecutor or a defending attorney. So I'd hear when I was a kid about Lake County and government and the grass shack and all that stuff that used to go on, and all some of that stuff that apparently still goes on, and the trials and tribulations of these attorneys and what they did, and lights out in bar tab and all those things. And I just remember hearing about it, while I'm out shooting baskets or running in to get dinner, just hearing about these things.
Yeah, I remember growing up as well. My dad was a Lake County politician, went through actually Gary was a precinct committeeman, got to Maryville. They got him to do precinct committeeman job there, and they moved up to town council. So I remember, but when you're in high school, you really don't. I don't think that's on your radar. And especially when I went to Andrean for 1 year, went to Maryville, he tried to get me to help him, and I did my best to help him campaign, but he did it on his own. But I remember hearing snippets of all the stuff that was going on. But until I moved back here recently, I really didn't get an understanding about what Lake County politics was, and holy moly, it is different. It is. It's fun. That is. So from Loras, you went to Illinois, Chicago.
Yeah.
Right?
UIC.
Mm-hmm.
Before it was cool to go to UIC, it was just still kind of doing okay, but over there by Taylor Street. So now, I mean, it looks unbelievable now.
Beautiful.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Absolutely.
And that was, that's 20 years ago or so. Talk about redevelopment and rejuvenation and plowing money back in and utilizing your assets in a smart way. I look at that place and I think, wow, that's a great example of you had a community asset, you had an anchor, and you reinvested it. And you know what? Guess what? When that happens the right way, people make money, and sometimes a lot of people make a lot of money. And there's nothing wrong with that, at least in my view.
Right. No. Actually, that's what America's all about: free enterprise. So, so then you left college, graduated from college. How did you get on the path to what you're doing now?
Well, I was always engaged in politics. Like in high school, I was involved. I was the treasurer at Andrean and did that for 2 or 3 years, class treasurer. But I always liked it. So even at Loras, we participated in these things, mock trial. So it was. I liked the challenge of it and the I guess the discussion factors that went on with it. But I lived in Chicago. I have a couple of my roommates, and I worked for the city of Hammond. So, as the long arm of patronage goes, I got hired by my brother. I joke about that because the funny part of the story is that somebody actually wrote an article that I was driving from Dubuque, Iowa, to come back to work every day in Hammond. And when I read that, I went, "Oh boy, this is how this is going to be." But I started working for the city of Hammond. Worked there for quite some time. Tom McDermott Sr. Was the mayor when I started there. There was a lot of stuff going on in Hammond, and worked with Dwayne Deedlow, and then I moved on from there. Went to kind of expanded, learned a lot about municipal finance and how that stuff works in the context of private sector money and banking and real estate, and how to plug all that together. And that's what ended me up at Crow Chiswick at the time, which our mutual friend.
Right, Carl Sender.
Carl. Ex-Bender Carl Sender.
Yeah. I knew of him from the Valpo School Board. He sat, in fact, I think he still does sit on the board.
I think so.
Steve Dalton is a friend of mine as well, and he's now a partner there.
Yes.
So that's awesome. He's a neat guy. So moving forward, then you decided to go out on your own from there?
Well, I've had like 3 main jobs in my life. I worked for the city. I worked in public accounting for 2 different firms, Crow Chiswick and Arthur Anderson, and then I worked for an engineering firm. So I was a partner with my engineering firm, and at the time it was time for me to split and go my own way. So I've accumulated what I call a dangerous amount of knowledge about things. I know about the government, I know about accounting and finance, and I know about engineering and design. So it makes for a dangerous combination if I'm not careful with who I surround myself with. So the concept of MCR Partners is this, and I use it in the context a lot of people can understand when if you hire a general contractor for your house. The general contractor isn't the guy that's doing the electricity or doing the toilets or doing no, he's making sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do so that when you go to open your door, it works the way you should. MCR Partners is a professional service management company that does that. So, as an example, I'll use a project right now that I'm working on in Hammond. Okay. So there was a contact made to me by a private sector guy who says, I want to do this project. It was in the paper, and I know McDermott's talked about it. They said, hey, Matt, do you think you can help us? And I said, well, sure, I think I can. Let's talk about what you want. Well, we need to find this. We need to find the way to work with the state of Indiana. We need to find a way to work with the city. We need to find a contractor, general contractor contractor. We need to find local contractors. We need to find engineering, design, and architecture. And I said, okay, I can probably do all that. And so what I do in this project is I coordinate that stuff broadly. And so that means when there's issues that will come up with the city, it's like, how can we resolve this, or what should we do? And so I have a great deal of partnership with these people that are the investors and then also the contractors. So that's what it is. So I boss around lawyers and engineers and architects and pretty much anybody else who will listen to me, because I can tell you what, I'm not bossing anybody around at all.
So, yeah. Well, one of those subsets that you mentioned, bossing around, intrigues me, because I totally agree with that. So that's interesting. So you worked at an engineering firm before. So
yeah, 14 years.
Basically where you got your your legs to deal with contractors and understand the mechanical concepts of these large projects, and then your financial background with bonds and so on. So that pretty much sets you up for moving into a private firm that is soup to nuts. You can take it from the basic concept, the funding, all the way to the construction part of the, which is kind of unique, because coming from school district, working at school district, you always had these different entities managing the engineering, the architect, managing the construction. And boy, just keeping all those connected in itself is a nightmare.
Managing the managers?
Managing the managers. Oh,
so what I try and do is working with these guys, the private sector or the public sector. Let's just find the right price and make sure that it's done right and done on time. And to me, I've seen any beef I've ever had with a client was always related to over promising and under delivering. It's a hackneyed statement, but it's the thing that really fries people's butt. And they're like, well, you said you were gonna, and that's a bad day to start out that day with a call from a client. Hey, you said you were gonna. Oh, well, then where do you go from there? I try to minimize any of that, and that's by having that diverse background. That it's 25 years of doing this stuff,
right?
So it's it wasn't by accident that I sat down and thought, what could help projects go. In my observation, what happens in projects when they get slowed down, where there's lack of communication? And it's usually because in the professional service arena, one of the others is trying to jump out to the lead. And it's good to keep everybody in the same room at the same time. It helps manage the expectation of the client, the owner. It helps manage the expectation of the consultant. Now, if you're in here and you're thinking, boy, this is a big project and I'm going to make a lot of money, it's like, wait a second. Let's figure out what the right amount is, so that you're, just managing expectations.
Well, I think about like some of the smaller cities, towns. When you have elected officials or town boards or city councils or mayors, when they get elected, a lot of them don't come from backgrounds of knowing how to do this. But now we're looking at the economic development in the area. They have to make their communities survive. They have to somehow ignite economic development to keep people and business coming in. But yet they don't have that expertise. There's a lot of the engineers that are city engineers or town engineers. That's all they've done, and then that's problematic in some cases. So a lot of times that's where MCR comes into play, where a city, municipality, school district. Have you worked with the school district?
I have not worked with the school district. Well, I shouldn't say that. We did a facility analysis for the schools, Tri-Town schools in Lowell. They ended up knocking the building down, and then they ended up building a new building. Anyway, that was their choice. But as far as municipal clients directly, project work with the city of Hammond is something I'm involved in right now. The town of Porter, Indiana is a client, and I advise them accordingly. And the town of Hebron also. And
you work with Highland as well, right?
Yeah, well, my position in Highland, I joke about this. I have over the term. It just costs me money because it's a volunteer job.
Oh, okay.
And
I just know Mike Griffin said, "Oh, I know Matt. Tell him hi. He does stuff for Highland." And
I do.
Okay.
And no. And years and years ago, Dan Durnell, when he was on the town council in Highland, asked me. He goes, "Hey, Matt, would you mind sitting on the Economic Development Commission for the town?" And I said, "Yeah, man, why not? Okay." And I don't know how many years later, Who was joking? Somebody was at the last council meeting. They said, "Hey, congratulations, by the way, you're appointed again as the economic development."
Surprise!
So I enjoy actually working with the town, and always have. And along those lines, we just announced a big project that's moving forward, and it's really big for the town, and it's something they haven't done before. And I know the town council was excited about the Cardinal Campus project, but that's a project that involved the private sector, that involved the public sector, that involved bond financing, and getting all that together. And I know Michael Griffin was fired up about it. He was very excited, as were the rest of the council, Mike Gurney and all the rest of them. We're very excited. And it was nice from my perspective to see that where I started in the Highland Economic Development Commission, which is maybe we would meet once every 3 years because it's on command or on demand, and talk about and approve a real estate property tax abatement in a commercial area. And then we got from that to a couple of those to this pretty big size project, which is $16 million in public and private infrastructure and creation of a TIF district and property acquisition and a lot. And they're complex. And, from my perspective, anytime anybody's going to spend $16 million in your town is a good thing. It's even better when they're going to spend $45 million like was projected by this. And that's an example where you see communities, having the right kind of people in the room to understand that, instead of the naysayer people that are, that's a waste, and why doesn't that guy do it by himself, and what about this, the whatabouts. What about if a tornado comes? I joke about it. What about if it does? But if it doesn't, here's what the plan is. So a lot of that, and elected officials.
I'm not going to leave my house because I could get hit by a bus.
Yes, exactly.
In some cases, we wish some people did get.
No, we don't. Stop it.
I've been in Lake County
I'm neutral.
too long. So that's one of the things. You have these people at varying, and this is the United States, free country. Everyone has freedom of speech, but there's a complex area because for a while when we had economy downturn, municipalities were being struggled, and then we had the state of Indiana realigning their budget, putting the load on municipalities to figure out a lot of funding on their own, hence the TIF districts. So you actually go in and help some of the communities figure out how they're going to fund this, whether it be through bond, TIF, how they're going to...
seeded tax, that's the economic development tax. In Hammond, Gary, East Chicago, Lake County, Porter County, could be gaming dollars. Could be gaming dollars in LaPorte County. So there's varying sources, but my general rule is tie your sources and uses together. So if you're taxing something about having to do with cigarettes, then make that part of something having to do with medical. If you're taxing booze, have to do with treatment and enforcement. If you're taxing roads or you're taxing gas, then put it in the roads. Don't tell me we're going to tax you for this, and then I think we're just going to put it into our general fund. People get, and I think rightly so, get mad about it. They don't see what I find the more successful elected officials, the more successful public servants are able to deliver that message clearly. Hey, this is why we have this tax, and this is what it goes for. And those who don't, they get ripped, and just because somebody else made us do it, in my view, is not a good excuse. I heard that when I was a kid. Well, Johnny's doing it. How come I can't? The state made us do it, but.
You got to be a sales guy for your community. You've got to be able to you got to be able to convey to the citizenship that this is why we need to do this and spur healthy community. Now, one of the things that I just got a book. I haven't cracked it yet. I got this book called Inversion, and back in the 60s, 70s, we saw this flight out into suburbia. People moved out there. They wanted the big homes and the large lots. But what I haven't gotten into this book yet, but just skimming through it, they developed the concept that we're seeing an inversion. People are moving back to the municipalities, being closer. people don't want to spend 2 hours mowing their yard. They'd rather have a smaller, and we're seeing, in Valpo, I know before we left Valpo, they had a large development. All the development going on within the city was centered around multifamily condos, and high-end condos. So we're seeing more of that. And the thing is, there's been paradigm shift after paradigm shift over the last couple of decades, and the tricky part for a municipality is to where are they going to put the money? What development needs to spur? Are these people? Is the true analogy, if you build it, they will come, is a nightmare for a lot of elected officials. So, and that's where you could kind of come in and try to do some demographic studies and see where people are moving and what the projected growth is in the city.
Yeah, so you do these things called location quotients, and it talks about proximity to activity and job. Anyway, it's really boring. But
it's all that math crap.
It's all the math stuff. And if anybody knows anything about math, there's only one right answer to math. That's why I like to try and use it as much as I can. And when I'm talking to people, I'm like, no, there's only one right answer. It's not subjective. So when you look at the shift that occurred and the urban sprawl and the whatever, it happened because there's cheap land. And there were people willing to extend utilities, and that's what happened. And now you're finding that the same infrastructure is in these urbanized centers. Look at Chicago. There's a bunch of people that I hear from and that bash Chicago as like this deadliest place on earth. When I explain to them, me and my wife go there twice a month and we have dinner, and I don't even think twice about what you're talking about. It's not even in my view shed.
Right.
Yet there's this outward discussion about the dangers in Chicago, and I said, I'm not going anywhere where I think I need to use a firearm, so that's my general rule. So I'm just going to go have dinner in an international city. So if you have those amenities, and now you're older. See, I'm old, but I'm not really old.
No, we graduated in the same year.
Right, so I'm not. I said I'm not.
Yeah.
Right. So you look at what's going on here. So you have an aging population. Well, not too many 75-year-old dudes are cutting their lawn. I understand, because I can tell you I'm not going to be 75 to cut my lawn. So you're looking at how can I streamline? What's less? What is less costly? What don't I have to fix? I mean, I could barely fix what's in my house now, let alone when I get older. So why not use those amenities? Why not go to a condo? Why not have to worry about cutting your lawn? Because it's easier. And if you're safe and you're comfortable, you're happy. And that's what you see with these increase, this resurgence of people moving back to, Chicago. Let's just use that. That's real, live, and going on. And if you're going to pay $250,000 for a condo in Chicago, or you're going to pay $250,000 for a condo in Tinley Park, and you work in Chicago, you're not going to do it. You're going to buy it in Chicago. And I also think that the other thing that's helping this uptick in condo and apartments are the price points. I think they got corrected. Chicago down in Printers Row 20 years ago, they're trying to sell these condos for $400,000. Nobody bought them because they weren't worth it. You can go there now and buildings that were vacant and derelict are knocked down, and you have condos that are being built. And you have this other thing, which is an evil word: apartments. Terrible. Everybody hates them, and so you got to live in one, right?
Right.
I lived in Tanglewood, in Hanover. I considered the Polo Club, which was in Maryville. But when I got done with college and I moved back after Chicago, moved back to Northwest Indiana, I didn't go buy a house, or I didn't have my aunt's house to rent, or I didn't go get something. I got an apartment. So that battle ensues. When you start having a decrease in the amount of home sales and home ownership, it's pushed. You see what's going. We see that this apartment availability is happening and needed. So now what do we have going on? We have old people. The baby boomers. So now we have the Gen Xers that are coming up, right? So where are these people going to live? Not in my basement. I've already told my kids that, right? So what do they do? Hey, I can only try.
I tried to evict ours several times. And,
no go.
Yeah, except my 2 girls after they graduated from college, they had to live together. Yeah, that caused the extreme dynamic. That one just got up and said, "I'm out of here." Oh, great!
No, darn it.
But yeah, it's a great time though. In fact, they have their own families now, and it's great.
So you look at the math. So you have people that are younger, whether they go to college, they go to trade school, they go to whatever. They got to have a place to live. So if you can make places that are safe, affordable, and people happy, they'll rent them. So what I've heard in many communities, all shall remain nameless, is we don't need any apartments. Okay, you don't. And then I start with the analysis. Well, let's see how many apartments you have. Get this number. And you say, okay, let's see what the average rents of your apartments are. You just give them that. And then there's usually a dispute. We had way more apartments. No, not according to the census. And, how do you know what the number is? Well, I'm also a real estate broker, so I know a couple things about that. And so then presented with this information, you say, what if somebody decided they wanted to build 200 apartments? And I told you it's going to be $25 million invested. And I'm going to take $25 million times 2%, so what's that? 200 and, I don't know, I can't do that anymore. Anyway, hundreds of thousands of tax dollars every year. And the rents are double what people are paying in rent in your town now. Now, does that sound like a good idea? Like it sounds like, wow, well, who wouldn't do that? The answer is nobody will do it. I'm like, wait a minute. So when I see projects like are going on in Valpo and the reuse of St. Paul's, that's cool, but they're condos.
Right.
So everybody loves home ownership. Everybody.
Well, and there's four condo projects going on in Valpo right now.
So everybody loves that.
Yeah.
So here's the dirty little secret. What do you think happens when the condos don't sell?
They get rented.
They get rented out.
They get changed into apartments.
They get rented out.
Yeah.
So I prefer to actually just get that done straight away.
Right.
Listen, here's 200 apartment units. Here's the management company. Here's what they cost per unit. Here's the property taxes generated. Here's the analysis of your school system. Can they accept kids? How many number of bedrooms do you want to have? Certainly all within compliance of fair housing. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, all that exercise is good, to go through and be done. But then, where do people shop? Where do they eat? Where do they go? Guess what? Well, how is this place here?
Well, Matt, we do have to get on to our other guest here,
No,
so I don't want to cut you short.
No, let him talk. He's doing a great job.
Good job. So let's talk about tomfoolery a little bit.
Actually, we thought, economic development, tomfoolery.
Well,
Yeah.
Because we do develop the economy.
Well, actually, we started an apartment complex, so that's what we're renting now.
And we're renting at very fair housing prices.
Very good. That's excellent.
No, but all kidding aside, just to give you guys out there an idea, we're going to have another guest on April 11th. Yeah, April 11th. And Matt, you're going to come back.
Sure.
Mayor Tom and Matt will be on the same show. That should be very interesting.
Oh, wow.
Great.
So, so...
We'll have to make sure we watch that.
Yeah, we're going to tune in for that. That's going to be
Well,
good.
come on out.
See, your viewership is going up after that.
Who gets the microphone on that show?
We've got some chairs.
as long as Dave Kuziak doesn't, I think I got a chance to get a little bit edgewise.
That's true.
You got to bring your own microphone.
Yes, get that little
Yes.
lavalier.
Exactly.
So, Matt, we really appreciate it. You're more than welcome to
Thanks again.
stay.
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Safe travels. Don't have too many. At
Oh,
least you got
no.
a driver here. So that's good.
Yeah.
And I'll stick around. I want to
Yes,
Yeah,
make him
this is going to be
stay.
exciting.
I'll stick.
He's blocked
Well,
in
now,
now.
see, when Bob Hope used to be on the Johnny Carson show and he did his thing, he always left, and then because he was, busy man. So if you want to leave, it's okay.
It's not my style.
Okay.
Good.
Join
Excellent.
Sit back, relax.
Yeah, I'm going to sit back and relax. I'm going to chime in from the
Drink
cheap.
your beer, drink your Coke.
So I'm the Tom and Michelle. Let's hear about tomfoolery. But first, let's hear about you.
Okay, we'll go right
Where
ahead,
did you
love.
guys come from? How did you get here? How did tomfoolery start? All that good stuff.
Okay, well, I learned a cool fact about Matt. He and I graduated in the same year, 1985.
Awesome.
Yes, and I grew up in the region. I went to school primarily in East Chicago, and then my mom moved us to Highland, so I actually graduated in Highland.
So you're a Highland Trojan girl like me?
I am a
Okay.
Highland Trojan girl. I graduated from Highland, and then I went on to Purdue Cal and majored in education, and have never been able to leave that world. I'm still there now, 20-some years later. I won't say how
Wow,
many.
that's great.
20-some years later, I'm still in that arena and have a lot of fun with that.
Excellent. What do you teach?
I was a teacher in the classroom, and then I phased out of that, and now I'm an instructional coach. So I do a lot of teacher training, help admin do a lot of testing, different things. You know, it takes a lot to run a school, and
yes,
so
it
I'm
does.
kind of on the back end, the helper on that back end of running.
Can you
the
say
school.
which school district you're with now?
Yes, I'm in East Chicago.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent.
So I'm in East Chicago. I've been
Okay.
there for a very long time, and still enjoy doing that.
Wonderful.
Yes. So that's the day job.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Until the tomfoolery stuff starts.
Yes.
The fun stuff, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, first of all, Bill and Kelly, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely.
This is a
We're
wonderful
thrilled to
spot,
have
a
you
wonderful
guys.
idea. Really love what you guys are doing here.
Thanks.
This is terrific. I'm from the area. I grew up in Hammond,
Okay.
and I'm one of those old people that you guys talking about,
Yeah, so
like the
right.
baby boomers,
Yeah,
right?
we're
Yeah.
boomers.
Now, before, okay, I've got to tell you guys a story about, because this just happened, about 2 hours ago. So I was getting a haircut today.
Oh.
And so I step up, and the hairstylist is talking to me. I used to call them barbers. They're stylists, I can't, I used to go to George's barber shop, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
$5 cut.
Sure.
So you're probably, that's why you look so bad. At any rate, but so she begins telling me about this elderly man that just got out of her chair. And I'm thinking, there was really, I saw that guy. He was younger than I was. And so, no, he's like real old, like 52.
Oh,
and I'm like,
man. Wait a minute now.
and I'm like, that's, that is younger than I am.
Yeah.
No.
Younger
Yeah.
than me too, darn it.
So,
Now I feel really old.
yeah, so that was my birthday present today.
Yes.
Get a haircut.
Yeah, I got a haircut.
Good job.
Yeah,
You look
better
good, too.
than the old guy in the chair.
Yeah, I didn't get called elderly, I don't think.
Well,
Okay.
you don't know. Maybe after you left.
After you
Yeah,
left.
I said I said the old guy. It was this for my chair.
Hey, did you see that old man leave that chair?
I'm glad
When the bus is picking him up to go back to the nursing home. How's that
glad that crabby old coot's out of here. Who's
Yeah,
next?
really.
So I am one of those old people. I'm proud of it, by the way. I grew up in Hammond, and I evolved into a very boring and dull career in the pharmaceutical industry, of all things. That's where I spent most of my life. I lived in the northern suburbs for many years, and I took an early retirement from that industry about 6 years ago. And what early retirement means is you don't have enough money to really retire.
Right.
It's one of those things where they tell you on Friday, listen, you could take this retirement package or not, but don't bother coming to work on Monday. So that's what I did. I took it. I took it, and I was very happy to have it. And then I moved back to Hammond by choice. A lot of people wonder if I'm part of the witness protection plan or something, but not
Yeah,
true.
I get
I
that.
moved back by choice. Well, I lost all my money, and then I chose to move back. So it was a good choice to make at the time. So when I came back, I thought I'm going to stay here for maybe 6 months or so, and then move on to someplace else. And 6 months turned into a year, and then I met Miss Michele, and that's turned into about 7 years now. Moved back here late 2010. So whatever the timeline is, moved back here and met Michele. And there are a couple of different versions of how Michele and I met. My version is that I was sitting in Langley's Pizza, sitting at the bar, drinking a beer, minding my own business, and Miss Michele approached me and stalked me throughout the evening until I finally relented and then and said, yes, I'll go out with you. Michelle's version a little bit different.
Yeah, slightly different.
I stalked
the stalking
her.
was in
and
reverse.
basically
Reverse
when did the
engineered
protective
stalking.
order
trailed
come
her
into
around
place?
throughout the evening. And the true version is very close to Miss Michele's version. So we're going to go with that. But I was persistent. That's what really got me to where I am today. So we met, and we were, dating and having a nice time. And one night we were sitting in the bar and having a drink. Not unlike tonight. We're
Right.
not a whole lot on TV. Maybe some replays of some games that were played previously that day. So we knew the outcome, and
And I'm not a big TV watcher
Not
at
at
all.
all, no.
Yeah, not at all.
So we were kind of having a discussion about what do we want to talk about? One of those things. Kind of ran out of things to talk about, and
So then I asked him. I just thought, okay, this TV is boring me absolutely to no end. So I said, okay, Tom, what would you do if you could do anything and there were no limits? What would you do? And so then that's how we started the conversation.
we just kind of started a conversation. I thought about it, and I thought, well, what I really would like to do is produce and promote a comedy show. It'd be kind of cool. Seeing the fact we're sitting in this bar here, there's really nothing to do, and it's just sort of a void of casual entertainment for that 35 and up crowd.
Right.
We could go out to a bar and see a headbanger band and party with a bunch of 21-year-olds.
Or drive to the city, pay
Right.
a lot of parking, then drive, maybe have a couple drinks, have to drive back a good 45 minutes or, whatever. And so that's when we decided to
Do it. We
just create a
came up with
comedy
the idea
show.
to stage our own event, and we approached the owner of Langle's, Rodney Langle, a good friend of ours, and he asked us, well, what do you guys know about promoting comedy shows, producing shows? And I said, well, I've been watching TV for 50 years, and if I don't know what's funny by now, I'm never going to know.
Right.
So we scouted out a few comedians and got a live band, and we built a stage that actually is about as big as this table right here. It's shorter.
Really heavy.
But my friend Todd Dust built this stage,
Old school
and
sturdy.
we bought some PVC pipe
Yes.
and bought some curtains from Bed Bath and
Bed
Beyond.
Bath and Beyond, and that's how we
you ever
started.
watch like Little Rascals when they're doing a show in their backyard? That's kind of what it looked like a puppet show stage.
And we were so proud of that.
Oh
at
yeah,
the
we're so
time.
proud of it. I still have a lot of those.
Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney. Let's
Oh
put on a
yes,
show.
that's exactly what we did. And the amazing thing is, we put up some posters, and people came. They showed up. And
Actually, that first show, we sold a double session of the show. We had so much interest in that night that we said, you know what, could we maybe do a show like about a 10 o'clock show after that 8 o'clock show? And so the very first night we had two shows that very night.
Great.
So call it beginner's luck, whatever you want, but we started out on a high note. And back then it was called Tom Byelick's Tomfoolery Fun Club. I was the host, and Michele was sort of in the background. So then the second show came, and the crowd thinned a little bit. And the third show came, and the crowd really thinned out. So it was really an abysmal
We were giving
failure.
away tickets at that point.
So at that point in time, I had this brainchild. I said, well, this show would be a lot more attractive if we had a girl up on the stage. So I brought Michele up as the co-host, and since then we've just made hundreds of dollars in this production. I mean, it's just it's wildly
Yeah,
successful.
so it's
We're
not
making
in the
so
red
much.
anymore, we're in the black, so it's
So we're having a lot of fun. We've been doing shows now for about 4 years, a little over 4 years. We've staged over 60 events, and we've progressed from places like Langle's to Wicker Park Social Center, a little bit bigger venue, banquet hall. And now we've been really fortunate to move into a real theater, something we really wanted to do, to get into like the Hoosier Theater is where we've been staging events in Whiting.
There.
600,
Yes,
yeah, absolutely, thank you.
The Old People Rock Band.
The Ides of
Yeah,
March with Jim
yeah.
Peterick. So we're trying to progress from just a local backyard production to a real deal theatrical production, and mix it up with different types of comedy and music, because we really wanted to get to that point where we could really be proud of what, not that we weren't proud of what we did
right. We
before.
were proud of our Bed Bath & Beyond curtains.
But we wanted to be famous. So in order to be famous, we have to
Like
be in front of a lot
Matt,
of
we
people.
have to do things.
Like you. Absolutely, right.
No one's coming
So that's
Gotta
what
put
we're-
ourselves out there, you
So
know.
is like Hoosier Theater now kind of a home base for you?
Well, we like to think it is, yes.
Okay.
And actually, there's a lot of history of the Hoosier Theater. Back when it first opened in the 1920s, performers like W.C. Fields, the Three Stooges performed there. James Cagney appeared there to sell war bonds. So there's a lot of rich history there that people don't know about. And then it progressed into more of a movie house than anything. And Michele and I walked into to see a movie there a few years ago, and we were just kind of poking around a little bit, and we met the owner.
Yeah,
and
it was really to stalk the owner so we could
Yes.
begin to get into the
we
theater.
thought this theater is so cool, so ornate. John Cathers is his name, and he showed us around and took us back behind the movie screen, which was this beautiful stage that was quite honestly a storage area. And but we saw through all that,
It's like,
and
no, this could be like fabulous. It could be like bands on the
Oh,
stage.
my gosh, yes.
You know, so right.
so John was a little hesitant because he's very protective of his theater, doesn't want anybody in there poking
get it,
around.
sure.
But again, in Tom fashion, I stalked him. I was persistent, and this
inner
time
stalker came out
I had a
again.
pretty lady with me. We both pursued, and he finally relented, said, "Yes, go ahead, take it, see what you could do with it." And we did our first show last October, and then we had the Ides of March with Jim Peterick on December 30th.
I've never been inside that theater. I've been by it 5,000 times.
Yeah.
And I always wondered what, I don't know, I wasn't on 119th Street very often, but
Right.
I made a point of going there because a friend of mine plays the trumpet. And,
Sure, yeah.
Tim
Bales.
Tim Bales,
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, come by here. I'm like, dude, I'm not driving to Whiting. But I got in there and I went, wow, this is really cool.
It's a cool.
It's like the best kept secret
you go
around
back
here.
In
It's,
time. You really
It's
kind of
really
go
cool.
back in time.
I didn't know what to expect. I thought like stinky gum,
Right.
Like
Popcorn, stale
cigs.
popcorn, none of that.
Right.
It's beautiful. And John bought it pretty much in ruins. And he restored it. He was like Michelangelo at the Sistine Chapel, painting on the ceiling. And his parents reupholstered all of the chairs, all of the seating. And it's beautiful, beautiful. So we're very fortunate to be staging some shows there now.
Yes, and a little known secret is when I started seeing these comedians on stage, I thought, wow, how do they do that? Like, what gives them that energy to just go up there and just, you know? So I ended up, the day job isn't always exciting and glamorous, so I wanted to see what it was like to really get behind these comedians. So I ended up going to Second City for Second City improv classes. And I went to the first class and it was like amazing, just the energy of getting in that building and, being in there. And so I took a class with one of my girlfriends who was also a teacher. And then I told Tom, oh my God, this is really cool. You should come. So I went into the second phase of classes and I got Tom to come into like the class session, right behind me. And so he at least bought into that idea and did go.
Right. Well, not that we pretend to be performers by any means. We're sort of the Ed Sullivan and Mrs. Sullivan of the show. We host it. We reintroduce the talent, but the talent is what really makes the show.
Now, how do you find the talent? Like, here you are in Hammond, in this area.
Yes.
Like, where do you find
That's a great
great
question.
talent? Like,
We
how do
first
you do
started
that?
out just going to some comedy shows in the city, and we'll take it back a step. When we came up with this idea, we wanted to have a production that was something that, first of all, we could be proud of, and that's something that my mom and my grown children could also attend, and neither party would be embarrassed for me for putting up a bunch of potty mouth, profane comedians. We just wanted to kind of take it back to those days where families could be together and a little kid could watch the Johnny Carson show late at night with their parents or grandparents, and they might be laughing at Rodney Dangerfield, but they might not be knowing what they're really laughing at, but everybody's kind of having a good time.
Right.
So
everybody else is laughing, so you laugh because you obviously get that joke.
We don't want have the parents have to cover the ears of the child.
Sure.
Not that we have a lot of kids come to our shows. Not that the material is inappropriate for children. We just don't want a bunch of little kids running around spoiling for the adults. So that it's more of a high school age and up type of a show. And then we mix in live music, so it gives patrons an opportunity to get up, move around, use the restroom, go to the bar.
Who's the three-piece Hispanic band with Ventura in it?
A bit of timepiece
Bit of
with
Timepiece,
Jesse
yes.
Hernandez and
Right
Mary
on.
Mystica. They were in one of our very first shows. Buddy Getch. They were in one of our very first shows.
Yeah, I think
Yes,
Matt actually is a secret closet lover of tomfoolery. He's come to many of our shows.
Oh, very good.
Oh, absolutely. So we mix in different types of music, different genres, jazz, blues, rock, you name it. And then comedians are, very diverse in their own right. Some younger, some older. We've had some improv comedy, some magical comedy, musical comedy. It's always a different show.
And what we really like or enjoy about having the show, besides entertaining ourselves, is that we give a platform to local and, even as local as Chicago, performers to kind of hone their craft, get a place to kind of come and try new material, just get out there, be seen by a new crowd of people. So it's really an opportunity for those performers, comedians, and musical to have a platform to be able to share their passion.
Matter of fact, one of the comedians in our upcoming show is a gentleman by the name of Mickey Housley. He moved here from Houston about 3 years ago, and our show was one of the first local comedy shows that he appeared in.
Yes.
And since then, his career's progressed to the point now where he just appeared at the Chicago Theater, and he warmed up for the quote-unquote headline act. but he performed in front of 3,500 people at Chicago Theater, and now we're very fortunate to have him back on our stage.
Now, is he going to be there on the 14th?
He will be.
for the
He'll be.
next show?
He'll be
Okay.
one of the in the lineup on the 14th. So
Yeah, you want to talk about that? You've got a
Sure,
show coming up on the
absolutely.
14th.
we sure can. Want to talk about that later?
Yeah, so April 14th, we're going to have our next show at the Hoosier Theater, one of our favorite spots. And we will have a comedic lineup. We also have a really homegrown band that will be in the show.
We have a nice diverse mix of comedians. Lindsay Lucido is a young up-and-coming comedian, very humble, likes to make fun of herself, and has a good time with that. And she's very lovable and she's got a very dry wit, so I think everybody will enjoy her.
Excellent.
Yes, and then we have Manny Acosta. He's been in many of our shows. He is extremely hilarious.
And he's another up-and-coming comedian, very witty, performs at places like Joe's and Weed Street and Mikey O Show, Laugh Factory, as does Lindsay. And then Mickey Housley, he'll be with us as the quote-unquote headliner, but we don't really like to use that term because we like to feel like we could just pull a name out of a hat and anybody can go first and last. It's not like, oh, she's funnier than he is. It's like, usually it's who has the most minutes of material when it comes to these things. And then from a musical standpoint, we have local legend Nomad Planets will be with us. And they'll be performing in between comedians, and it'll be a real good time.
Great, yeah.
Sure.
Now, how do people get tickets, or how do people follow you to find out when these shows are and how to get there?
Well, they can go on our Facebook fan page, Tomfoolery Fun Club, or they can go to our website, which is...
Yes, our website is www.tomfooleryfunclub.com.
That's tomfooleryfunclub.com.
Perfect. Yes, that's excellent.
So I have a question. Auditioning. So you have all these people.
Right.
What does the audition process look like? Is there like one of those reality shows where you have 3 judges?
Well, kind of. We first started going out and scouting comedians on site. We go out to shows, and since then, a lot of the comedians do come to us and they say, "Hey, we want to be on your stage. We want to be in your show." And typically, we either ask to let us know when and where they'll be performing, so we can go see them perform, or have us send us a YouTube video so that we can see them live. We never take anybody sight unseen based on a recommendation, or we have a couple times.
And we've learned lessons
We've learned early on.
I think I was there.
Yeah, we learned a lesson big time. I mean, this guy didn't get the memo.
He didn't get the memo,
He
and
said
it was
every
like-
bad word in the book and in every compromise.
And I think my face let him know, like, oh my God.
So it
And
wasn't
then
a
he
good
was like,
thing.
Oh, I don't
So
think I got the memo.
we learned that. 2 things we don't want from the comedians. We don't want them to use that type of language that makes anybody feel uncomfortable. And we don't...
Just to interject, by the way, Matt, I do have to talk to you and Tom before that show because I'm just thinking about things that shouldn't be said.
Well,
Just a little
I'm
editorial comment.
I'm very attuned to the adult show versus matinee concept in my daily life. So
Although I will say this show isn't on the air, so not regulated by FCC.
Sure.
But I never know who could be offended out there. You never know.
Well, you never know. So that's why I really didn't let us.
Hey, okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
But
Well,
anyway,
we designed the show, but mainly to appeal to our taste, what we like.
Yes.
Because we wanted people to feel comfortable. We don't. I've been to comedy shows and shows where you're just like a guy can't believe she just said that, and then you're embarrassed, and people are laughing out of discomfort rather than true joy. And we just want people to come and feel happy and feel enjoyment. So that's one thing. And the other thing, we don't want anybody in the audience to be teased. We don't want the comedian to make fun of Bill for whatever reason. And if you go to a comedy show, a lot of people don't want to sit in the front table because, he's going to make fun of me.
Right.
Michele and I, we sit in the front row right there, and we just want to enjoy the show. We don't want anybody in the audience to feel threatened because, let's face it, nobody goes on a Friday or Saturday night with the goal of being humiliated
And paying for that.
and paying to be teased and made fun of.
Well,
So,
some people do.
Yeah.
so we
Well, that's true.
we tell comedians if you need to make fun of the audience to get laughs, you need to come up with some new
Some better
jokes.
material.
So nobody's going to call me a hockey puck.
No.
No.
There's a little byplay between the audience and comedians sometimes, but it's all very playful. In fact, Michele and I, we bring people up throughout the course of the show, and we do a little door prize raffle and have a good time with them and that type of thing. But it's all in good humor, and nobody ever walks away feeling embarrassed.
I think it's great that we have something like this in our area. Really, you have to go to Zanies or something in
Right.
Chicago
You
for
really
that kind of
do, yes. There
entertainment.
aren't,
It's great to know that there's something like that in our backyard.
There are a few open mics in the area, for comedians, but I guess the last comedy club per se was Wisecrackers at the
Which is
Radisson
now
in
gone,
Maryland, and that's all
right?
gone.
It's no longer there.
And we're still sort of a traveling show, but we like to think that the Hoosier Theater will be our home base, where we can stage events on a regular basis,
Right.
and try to make that venue into something kind of like the maybe the Arcata Theater in St. Charles, where you have big name acts and mix it in different types of.
Can you get our local homeboy Jim Gaffigan on sometime?
Oh.
You think we can get Jim?
No, we say no. I mean, we say yes to everything. Nothing is out of the question.
Okay, I'm gonna write him right now.
Yeah.
Tell him he needs to come.
Matter of fact,
Yeah, dude, you're just from Munster. I mean, really,
He's,
come on.
he's a Chesterton boy, right?
I thought he was a Munster.
Michelle is
No, he's a
Michelle is the
Chesterton
goal
boy.
setter within our tandem here,
Yes.
and every goal we've set out, it's been based on Michelle's encouragement. And for example, when we first started the show at Langle's, Wicker Park was sort of like that bull elephant. If we could just do a show there, we would be so
We
happy.
need it.
So we
playing the Wicker.
did a couple of shows there, and it was really good.
It was like, oh my God. And now,
I was at
Matt
Wicker.
came to Wicker when we had 400 people.
I was
We had
there.
to put extra seats and
Yeah.
extra
Oh my
tables.
Extra
Yeah.
seats, you had
Yes.
tomfoolery, the fancy
Little
A
banner in front.
backdrop,
banner,
taking
you know.
pictures. Yes.
Yeah, we did
Yes.
all that, posted all that on Facebook. I was
Yes.
like,
Sure.
yeah, your comedians were awesome.
Absolutely.
They
Thank
were
you.
awesome, yes.
So once we did that, we thought, well, what's next? Where can we take this? And then again, we sort of fell into the Hoosier Theater one day and thought, well, this would be the ideal for us.
Right.
And since then, this will be our third show, and we're not necessarily looking past that. We just want to use that venue and do more things and do bigger shows and really give people of Northwest Indiana a legitimate entertainment option on a regular basis, so that they say, hey, what's happening at the Hoosier this weekend, or who's in
Right.
town this month, that type of thing.
You must have to build the brand
Right.
to let people know that that's a venue that has consistent shows, has
But
consistent
there are a lot of seats there, 600 seats.
Oh, wow.
So please come to the show and bring about 50 friends.
Okay.
Yes,
we
both
really
of you, so
appreciate
it's
that.
100 people
Yeah.
coming with you.
We'll
Matt,
find your room.
150.
Well,
Yes, yes.
well, when this gets rebroadcast at YouTube, but right now we don't have very many listeners.
That's okay. We'll
Oh,
get
It's
it.
okay,
We'll get it
though.
on
Oh, that's
our-
all right.
okay.
You know what? We're going to rewatch it and we
Bill
will be
Koch and Andrew Corona.
We're going to go home and share it on Facebook about 50 times, and
There you go.
yeah, we'll just annoy people to no end with this. So
That's
trust
right.
me.
Great.
Exactly.
Appreciate it.
Now,
So-
is there another show already in the works after the 14th?
No, we've kind of found over time that if we go into the warmer weather with shows, depending on if it's outside or not, we lose people. People have boats, they get outside, there's festivals, they're going away, and then we like to do things in the summer because I'm off and I'm not teaching, so or
Right.
being in school. So our summers are a little bit lighter for shows.
Okay.
So we like to kind of take that as our regroup time, our regrouping
Perfect.
time.
Absolutely, but we'll be back in September for a series of shows to be announced. But
Something to look forward to.
oh, absolutely,
Yes.
there'll definitely be some names that you'll be accustomed to, and you'll want to come check out.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming out.
Well, thank you,
and
Kelly.
telling us
Thank
your
you, Bill.
story.
Appreciate it.
And Matt,
Really
thank you for
appreciate it.
for joining
Good
too.
times
As well.
always.
This is a lot of fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, we'd like to thank all of our guests today and appreciate it. This is our first show in the Wildrose Brewery. Didn't get a whole lot of watchers today, but
That's okay, but we'll get a lot out
but
there.
we didn't really advertise it a whole lot. So maybe we only have it on the private group. So with that, Matt, we appreciate you coming on,
Yeah,
and
no problem.
and
I
look
appreciate
forward
it.
to you
A
to
lot of
coming
fun.
on with Tom.
Yeah, we'll figure
Yes.
it out here downtown Griffith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we're at Sip Coffee tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Another good spot.
Great.
Tom
You're
and
very
Michelle,
busy.
we
You're doing a
appreciate
great
it.
job.
I don't think I'm be trying out for your comedic act anytime soon, but
Well, send us a YouTube video and we'll figure it out.
it's up there. It has 2 views so far. 2 views. So you'll be the 3rd view.
Okay.
So run with that. I appreciate it, and this is fun. I appreciate your showing up and just sitting with us for a bit.
And he's
And
our first official guest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're honored.
This is the
Absolutely.
Wow.
inaugural show.
Right
We're very
on.
special.
And we would like to
I
thank
like
Wildrose
music.
Brewery for hosting this, and for the round of beers. We appreciate that.
Very tasty.
Yeah, very tasty, very good. This is a neat place. It's very
This is the
neat.
first time we've been here.
They have excellent
not been
food
here.
too.
Okay.
I'm not kidding.
Oh, it's really nice.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
nice
one
people.
thing I've got to say. Moving back to my home county, Valparaiso espoused they had 3 breweries, bragging about it. They're coming here, and I'm 18th Street is here now, and you have Wildrose and Poco.
There's New Oberpfalz. There's like all
Byway.
Region Ale, Byway. There's tons of these great little breweries around
Sure.
here.
Well, if you can't find a beer in
Lake
Griffith,
County
you're not
is
looking good.
Let's not forget about 3 Floyds.
Yeah, well,
You need the brew bus. You can walk. You can walk
bigger.
into.
Yeah, and so that's something I really appreciate. And one thing before we go, I will say this is an old Lake County boy coming back. It has changed, and I guess when I went away to school, came back, and then we moved down to Texas. So I really didn't come back to Lake County till just recently. But I did my internship at what used to be Jones and Laughlin, and now it's Mitel, but I was doing my internship, I just kept my head ducked going, making sure I got through the gate. Now, I'm looking through East Chicago. There's condos. They're beautiful. Same thing with Hammond. I heard someone talking about Cherville, the Indianapolis Boulevard stretch, and how they're having some problems with one of the particular spots where there's been 3 or 4 people in there. And I'm looking at it. I said, folks, the last time I saw this, there were warehouses there. There weren't any stores. So, coming back, I'm just amazed. I don't even recognize these areas anymore. Indianapolis Boulevard, Highland, Munster, Hammond. Highland, I got to say, I'm really impressed with, just because the pride and ownership. The homeowners have a lot of pride in their community, and the town, the Lincoln Center. Gosh, I keep talking about the Lincoln Center. Beautiful.
The project we were talking about became: is it a community amenity that we're willing to pay to keep, or is it something that we want to knock down? And they decided that's a community amenity we want to pay to keep, and it worked out.
Yeah, and I tell you, just from a person who's lived in a lot of communities, Lubbock, Texas, which was a sprawling community in West Texas, but it was a growing community. Moved back here, Valpo, who's pretty much become a model for a lot of people in economic development, because they've done a lot of great things with the skate park, Central Park. But when I look at the Lincoln Center, wow. That used to be an elementary school. They retasked, rebuilt, brought up to fitness center, meeting rooms, banquet center.
Absolutely.
And
parking lot
now
full of cars every day, and people using it and enjoying it.
And now they're going to have an indoor soccer field in the near future.
Gives people something to do.
And I read in books all the time about where communities fail. They ignored the fact of having a centralized area where folks can get together, meet, and use, and that creates a lot of community health. And I'm addicted to the Lincoln Center. Literally, I think I'm just going to camp out there, get a sleeping bag.
Have a show there.
Actually, we're talking, and we're supposed to have the guys from Parks and Rec on the show here. So, and talk. On the SIP show.
Not the Parks and Rec show, but the Parks and Recs of Highland, right?
If we have it here, it will become the actual Park and Rec show.
Although Amy Poehler was supposed to be there.
So with that, we'll say goodnight, and we wish you all a safe rest of the week. And please stop by, and we'd like to thank Wildrose Brewery again for their cooperation.
Come on out next week.
Yes.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter. Have a safe weekend. With that, good night.
Good night, everybody. Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Yay.
So much fun. See, Matt, we were always wondering what you did.
Oh, it's going to be so much fun.
Now you know.